I started stuttering from the first time I started speaking. I quickly learned that I shouldn't be stuttering. You know, people would either verbally tell me that or just I could tell the social cues. And I remember being in speech therapy as a very small child and learning that when I went to therapy, I shouldn't be stuttering. You know, no one told me that it was okay to stutter. And I held on to that till I was 45 years old. I chose to not get any more therapy. What I chose to do was go into hiding. And on my own, I learned a lot of tricks, a lot of avoidance techniques. Oftentimes, people wouldn't know I stuttered, but they could tell I wasn't speaking correctly, you know? My speech was very inefficient. I'd speak around things. I would use strange words sometimes. I'd pause strangely. And of course the biggest avoidance techniques is just not showing up. That was a big one for me. There were a lot of choices in my life that I chose not to show up for something because I couldn't face stuttering openly in front of people. That for some reason I taught myself was the worst thing that could happen, you know. I never talked about stuttering with anybody, so my brain was the most dangerous neighborhood, but that's where I lived. I remember as a little kid being 8 years old and also being brought into a room with a tape recorder and having to read, and then she would play it back and she would show me where I was stuttering. And I quickly learned like that was bad, that she was showing me that these are the things not to do. And then she was trying to teach me tricks, how not to do that, really strange tricks. And I'm telling you, even as an 8-year-old kid, I knew more than she did about my stuttering, and I learned to not trust her. I don't want to say she was my enemy, because she meant well. But I just knew that she didn't know what she was talking about. And I knew that as long as I went into that hour-long therapy room, and as long as I didn't stutter there, I was okay. So it wasn't really doing me any good. And then they even sent me to a psychiatrist thinking that maybe there must be something wrong with me as a small child. Like maybe my parents are being mean to me, or people are bullying me, or there's something mentally wrong with me. And there I wasn't, I was just someone that stuttered. And these adults, these trained professionals, just couldn't get their heads around the fact that I was just someone that stuttered, and I needed for people to be okay with me stuttering. So unfortunately, that experience put me on a 35-year journey in the wilderness where I had to teach myself the tricks that I knew would work. So when someone would record me, they wouldn't hear me stutter. But that was a really dark place to go to. I finally sought help because I was losing sleep at night. I would stay up, I'd wake up in the middle of the night, and I would just think, how am I going to get through the next day with my communication? And I would start coming up with strategies. I would game out exactly how conversations were going to go. And that was just no way to live. So I'm still pretty new to this program. And when I first came in here, the idea of open stuttering was just like being on an alien planet, Although it became very freeing to do that. Vivian, she encouraged me to bring my partner here, because a big part of my stuttering was being covert, hiding, and she told me I needed to, start opening my boxes up. I needed to start letting people in to show that I stutter. So I brought my wife in, my partner, who I've been with for 15 years. She's my best friend. We do everything together. But when she came into this room and hung out with us, everyone stuttering, and she got to hear me and other people talk about how it made us feel, and the fact that we had these tricks and strategies and all the stuff that goes on, under the iceberg, all the internal stuff. I remember going home and having a long conversation with her, and we still have these conversations that she just had no idea, it was the first time in 15 years that she knew that part of me. And I always felt like I had to hide it. And even if I wanted to talk about it, I didn't have a language for it, you know? And, and this is a woman who we had this weird, unspoken kind of relationship about my stuttering. You know, she had to introduce me very often to people. She had to do phone calls sometimes when I couldn't do them, you know. She would be very patient with my weirdness when I would communicate sometimes with people. And so it's such a success that I could bring her into my world, and that now I can open stutter with her. I mean, I stutter more with her than I ever have in my whole life, you know. I don't have to pull the tricks out. And then that kind of foundational relationship now, I can jump off, and now I'm kind of excited to find different people in my life that I can bring in and show them this is who I am and this is what I can do. And it's all because I had a language that I built in these rooms. I had never been around people that stuttered, so when I first came to this program and I sat in a room full of people openly stuttering, I was really embarrassed for them. And I was thinking, like, why are they doing that, you know? Because everything in my life had taught me to avoid that. It was such a freeing experience to sit in a room. You know, that was my first box that I could like openly stutter in. And I had never really had that feeling before of speaking spontaneously. I didn't even know that that was something that was possible, you know, that I could just speak without pre-thinking everything I was going to say and figuring out how I was going to navigate that communication. I could just go right to what I wanted to say, even if I stuttered throughout that process. And it's such a paradoxical idea that learning to open stutter is actually the way to speak better in my mind, you know, because then I could start dealing with, you know, my voice and my speech and, you know, my feelings. I just had to be myself.
And that spontaneity is important to you, I can tell. Was it easy to open stutter?
Absolutely not. When I first came in here, I think it was probably maybe even 3 months before I even allowed myself to stutter openly in these rooms. I was still really just like watching people and just really being in awe of people open stuttering. They would look you right in the eye while they're stuttering. I still struggle with that sometimes. Actually, that's what I'm working on, you know.
And what would be important outcomes for you for therapy? What would you like to be able to say at the end of therapy?
Yeah. So my goal with this therapy is just to be able to open stutter anywhere in the world, you know, to be able to speak spontaneously, say exactly what I want to say, and and the big thing is really just to be able to introduce myself. That was always the biggest thing, and I think that's the thing that finally got me in these rooms, was that I would do everything I could to not have to say my name. That was like my Achilles heel, and I would avoid situations just to do that. And it made me feel insane, you know, that I could not say my name.